Welcome to Behind the Bylines, a podcast by PR Newswire, where we chat with journalists and editors across APAC on what goes behind the bylines. We will find out more about a day in their work life, trends and developments they are tracking, and how PR professionals can work better with them. I'm Shilawati Vijanathan, Audience Development Executive at PR Newswire. Today, my guest is Poovenraj Kanagaraj, the founder and editor of Disruptr, a community-building media platform that empowers local entrepreneurs and startups. He also runs Heads Up, a weekly newsletter under Disruptr. Raj has more than 6 years of experience in communication and journalism and previously worked with BFM, Business Today, Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC, Weber Shandwick, and Khmer Times. Welcome, Raj, to the podcast. It's my absolute pleasure to have you here today with me. Thank you, Raj, for joining me today. To ease into things, do you want to share some fun facts about yourself?
That's a very good question. I used to think, there was nothing much fun about me because, I work a lot. But I think what's one thing that a lot of people do not know, even close friends, is I've actually, throughout my career, I've actually managed to do all sorts of platforms in terms of in journalism, in terms of radio, monthly papers, newspapers, online. But the one thing that I've not been able to do is actually TV so far. So yeah, hopefully Astro Awani watches this, and then they say, just come on TV for a day, and I just complete my, my set of sets. So I think that's one thing that I've been very fortunate, and I think a lot of people don't know is I've done almost everything, every medium, besides TV. Other than that, I think I work a lot, so there isn't much fun. But I do I think I don't know how fun this would be, but I do still I think as a former magazine editor, right, I actually like going to Kinokuniya or any bookstores and still buy as much magazines as I can, which is something very rare. I've not heard anyone, people, my age or our peers at least, buy magazines. So that's something. I have a huge magazine collection in both international and local magazines in my house.
Nice to know that. I love magazine too because I feel like there are more graphics and then the font are interesting and then the content's quite short, so it's impactful and informative.
Yes, I agree.
And also, I know that you are the founder and also editor of Disruptr. Maybe you can share a bit about Disruptr.
Okay, I think before we jump into, I think I definitely want to share a bit more of the history, right? So Disruptr didn't just come up as Disruptr. Like you mentioned, I also run Heads Up, a non-for-profit newsletter. So back in 2020, when the COVID hit us, right, and I was the editor of Business Today, I came to realize that there was a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and I was very much interested in social enterprises as well. And these entrepreneurs and founders were not given a lot of highlight in our mainstream media, right? And a lot of them were also from places like Sabah, Sarawak, where our media don't really extend into those areas and touch. Or maybe if you have someone really mainstream and successful, then you see them pop up. So I decided to run a newsletter called Heads Up, and I thought, okay, I just want to support the entrepreneur ecosystem, and I just started to list people down and ask a few simple questions, and then by 2022 we had over 12,000 people reading it already, right? And then it caught the eye of an investor, and he said, I like Heads Up, but let's grow it into a bigger platform because Heads Up is it's on a Substack domain, right? And so we grew it from Heads Up to Disruptr. But also another fact is the reason why I couldn't maintain as Heads Up was because there was another international school somewhere in KL that had the same name that I didn't even know. until our legal team went through it, and they were like, oh, you can't use heads up and has a registered name, because there was another international school that I don't even know if it's still going on, but we can't do anything much. So I thought, what is it that I'm trying to do? And I thought, okay, we definitely want to disrupt and highlight the disruptors of the ecosystem. And there wasn't much of a focus and a targeted focus anyways. Of course, you see a E27 and Tech in Asia, uh, who are doing, Mohan Balani from E27, they're all doing great things. But I just wish there were more focus on Malaysian entrepreneurs as well. So I think it's more like, they are doing a great job highlighting our entrepreneurs who have gone to international platforms. Meanwhile, I want to use Disruptor to sort of highlight people who are upcoming and not highlighted yet. So that's how Disruptor came about. It had its origins goes back all the way to 2020 during COVID. Then we just grew it into Disruptor now.
That's truly a remarkable initiative from you to create a platform for all these startups, social entrepreneurs. I think it's a really good platform where all these new businesses can come and feature themselves on your platform. Great, great. So what one of the most memorable assignments for you with Disruptor maybe that you can share with us?
I think my memorable assignment, would be to one of the things that I do is, of course, try to find talents, startup talents who are growing. And I through a friend, they knew I was running Heads Up and Disruptor, and they were like, oh, you should we speak to this guy who had great background. He was studying in the UK. I think he was in mechanical engineering. And I think what impressed me is most of us, a lot of us in that position would be like, if I had opportunity to work in the UK and earn in pounds and just explore that place and live there, I think we would want to go for the opportunity. But what really interested me in that assignment was, he decided to come back to Sabah, and his father is a farmer, and he came up with a solution called AgriData, which is a startup now, to sort of help farmers there to overcome inequalities, try to get them more revenue, fair revenue. So that talent for him to come back to Sabah, I think that was one of the assignments that I really do remember till today, because that's what Heads Up and Disrupt is all about anyways, is to give platform for those who they've yet to be uncovered by the mainstream media. So that's something where I, even till today, I really do try to see what he's doing after all this time as well. And then I think another assignment very recently was, I was working with Shandwick iLabs, and they have this interesting program where they open up this innovative program to get employees and students to pitch in ideas for potential solutions. And this year it was more on the smart cities. And so I had the opportunity to just listen to people pitch and engage with the students. I think that's something that all universities should do, all employers should do, because the moment you let employees to pitch ideas to you, I think I saw great tons of ideas, and these things, they really impressed me, right? And it makes worth my time to really run Disruptor and feature all these ideas. So I think these two are very memorable to me. I've enjoyed covering them and writing about them as well.
Thank you for the sharing. And I equally agree with you. Like, if we create more opportunity for people out there, we might not know what new ideas, new innovative that we can discover. So you have been working with a lot of startup and then entrepreneurs, and also when it comes to receiving pitches or press releases from PR professional, what do you look out to for that grabs your attention?
I think for me, of course, PR people have known me for more than 5, 6 years, right? These are PR people who have followed me through my time in BFM, and then I've done other forms of reporting, health reporting, and then Business Today, Heads Up, Disruptor. I think what I always look for is a very direct pitch. If I'm going to be reading a lot, we get, as editors and reporters, we tend to get a lot of pitch in a day, right? So I think I appreciate those who really knows, who are very direct and straightforward. Give me a profile of who you want me to interview. What's the pitch? Something very interesting, not done all the time. I'm always looking for founders who have innovative solutions that can help the community grow. That's something I'm looking for. And of course, I also look for pitch that really knows what is it that Disruptor focuses on. We are very clear in what we do. We focus on startups, SMEs, social enterprise, entrepreneurship. So when sort of, I think it's only fair for me to ask that PR people also understand what is it that we do, right? Because it helps me as much as it helps you. So when I start getting pitch that are not related to what I do, then I'm just like I'm reading, and then I realize, oh, it's a waste of my time already, right? So I think, yeah, something direct, straightforward, understand what is it that they start to do. I mean, as a media platform, I think it makes it even easier for you to just go through what we do and see, this is something that's really different. Because I think I would want a PR person to believe in their pitch in order to convince me to believe in their pitch.
Just to summarize whatever you have shared, so basically a direct pitch, unique and innovative idea, and basically straight to the point, no going around and all. That's how it helped the editors to pick which features story to be post on demand. Okay, so next would be like, how do you think media pitches that you shared earlier can be improved?
I think for me, I think make it shorter, definitely, right? I think when pitches come, of course, you are attaching a lot of information for us to read, which is great. I appreciate that a lot. But I definitely need something eye-catching, right? Your subject itself needs to just give me something that, wow, I read that and like, I've never done this. I've never worked on a story like this before. And I think it'd be good if they stop selling products. I want PR people or pitch to really reflect and highlight how smart these founders are, how smart these innovative solutions are, and how deep they can go into it. Because we are not, when we interview, we're not writing it news style anymore, right? We are writing long form articles. So it really helps when you know the subject really highlights how smart the pitch is, how willing the um, founder is to champion his solution, his cause. I think that's something that I really want to see, which unfortunately I do not see a lot, right? Of course, all of us when we pitch, even when I'm doing PR, I think what I'm pitching is right because I think I believe in it, but it doesn't necessarily mean the reporter is going to believe in what I believe, right? So I think maybe one way is we can either work together, which I'm very open to. Have a sit down with me, have a chat, um, understand what is it that I'm doing, because I think everyone has a story. It's about just finding the right angle. So I think that's one way we can go about it.
Yes, exactly. So the main thing is usually will be the headline and the subject, because I believe that's the first thing when you open a mail or you receive a pitch that you will. These are some of the significant tips that PR professionals shall mark down on. So maybe as there are more and more new businesses that are establishing these days, what type of news in the startup industry that you are looking out to feature besides of like creative and unique and outstanding? What other criteria that you're looking into to be feature them on your platform?
I think I'll break it down into a few categories, right? We do the news, we cover the news, and then Disruptor also does entrepreneur listing. And with the ecosystem that I work in, there are very different types of players, right? I think from the VC side or from the government side, any form of grants or help that you have for the startup founders, I think if those news, I do look forward to those kind of news because those are very helpful for startup founders. If they have a certain program they are creating for startup founders like VCs or government agencies, right? They create a lot of programs to help startup founders. I think if there's a way for us to highlight those type of news, we can have a sit down and say this is how the program works, because everyone wants a breakdown, right? Sometimes programs are overly complicated that even founders, the moment they look at the news, they'll be like, I don't understand where this is coming from, because I have only so much information as what is given to me. So I think funding news, grants news, that are simplified and in step basis, I think that helps me a lot. In terms of interviews, I definitely look for aspirational news, stories, angles, where I want to interview, I do enjoy interviewing successful entrepreneurs who can impart their knowledge and their experience, not just the good ones, but the bad ones as well, that can actually serve to help up and coming entrepreneurs. Because I can assure you, now I think after COVID, there's more and more people who want to be entrepreneurs, right? They enjoy doing, I mean, whether or not the passion is there is a different thing, but the interest is definitely there already. So I think stories that really serve as a guidance, right? Because I definitely wanted to look what other people were doing when I wanted to, run Disruptor or Heads Up. So I think guidance, aspirational stories, and I do ask for entrepreneurs who want to empower younger entrepreneurs to come and speak to me as well, because everyone needs a mentor. So stories that highlight on your willingness to mentor new entrepreneurs, that's great too. I mean, these are the areas that I'm looking at currently as well. In terms of trends, I think uh, there's this thing going on in the ecosystem now called, funding winter, where VCs are not funding anymore. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, in terms of story trends, I think they want to see ways that they want to help themselves. They want to read things that, how do I move forward if I cannot raise funding? Are there other ways? So I was interviewing someone recently as well, and then they shared certain business models that can work for entrepreneurs. So I think those things, very interesting.
Okay, Raj, thank you for sharing. So, as you mentioned earlier, you also interview numerous startup founders, which you mainly feature under Heads Up, your weekly newsletter. Maybe you can share like some tips or idea on what kind of story these founders can share, because usually they only share on their achievements, their whole idea, and then their funding. So basically, it goes around these three same topic. Maybe you can, from your point of view, you can share what kind of story that the startup can also share, so that our listeners can also have an idea what kind of story that they can also write on.
Yeah, I think achievements are good, but like you said, right? Everyone wants to talk about their achievements, right? I think you don't find a lot of sharing of regrets, warnings of what not to do, what to avoid. Areas of as a founder, because a lot of founders, I think, across their 7 to 8 years, they would have things that they have done, regretted, and be like, okay, learning point, I'm not going to do it. But also, I think through a platform like Disruptor, you can actually help other entrepreneurs to avoid the same pothole. I mean, why would we want someone else to go through the same difficulty and challenge when we have learned, benefited from it, and then others can benefit from our experience as well, right? I think it'll be also good for us to start exploring stories of culture, workplace culture in startups. It's already been presented as something that's very fancy, very new, but there's a lot of challenges that a lot of people do not know, the difference between running a startup and working in a more established company, right? Uh, Stories of failures are very interesting as well to me. I think you keep rising after every failure, right? You fall, you get up, you fall, you get up. We don't see a lot of stories on this. Sometimes in my experience, you find very successful startups that have actually gone to a peak, and then they just, after a few years, you have the news that they're closing down, right? I think these are stories. I definitely approach those entrepreneurs. They're still a bit reluctant to share those kind of stories about the story of them closing down. I think for them, maybe they have a lot of regrets of doing not doing, maybe a bit of, they are sad, definitely very sad over them having to close, right? Because a lot of people depend on founders. But I think these are stories that really humanize the ecosystem. Uh, I think that would be a very interesting read as well. Even even stories like how some entrepreneurs, they are sort of pushed to expand beyond Malaysia, right? And then they go into Indonesia and then suddenly it doesn't work. They go to Singapore, it doesn't work, right? I mean, those are stories that we want to hear, because sometimes your business model might be very similar to another person's business model, and they might be thinking, you know what, I've done my best in Malaysia, I want to go to Indonesia, I want to go to Vietnam now. But little do you know, someone else might have tried it and you are doing the exact same approach. And rather than you failing while going there, you might have a different approach after reading these sort of stories. So I think these are some places where I think we can definitely share. And stories of failures, I think they're equally as important as achievements. So I think that's something that maybe I'm hoping, fingers crossed, founders will decide, okay, after hearing this, yes, I think I'll go and talk about why certain things have failed, because they're still very reluctant, actually.
Yes, yes. I think these days, like founders, they think they need to share story on achievements, success, and all. But I think it's really like what you shared. It's good to share stories of their regrets and failure, and then also on what things that they should not do in the business, so that other readers or other founder could be inspired and benefit from their article. And also maybe events like a story on about like workplace culture, because I also believe like most of the startup and new enterprise businesses, they have like a small working place and culture. So I think that's really some of the story that our listeners and also all these startup businesses can focus and write on. How does becoming an editor cultivate your view and understanding of how the media industry practices have shifted over the years, especially during COVID? As you know, COVID gave significant impact to all of us. So maybe you can share how it has cultivated your view and how these things have changed in the industry.
I've been very fortunate to have worked with a few different types of platforms, media platforms, in Malaysia. I've been very fortunate to work with usually new media that is coming up, right? In in an ecosystem where we have very old players who are constantly expanding and taking the views and big readership. I've also worked with, my experience has allowed me to work with medias in Singapore, Cambodia, Indonesia, and they're all very different, right? They all function very differently compared to Malaysia. I think over the years, pre-COVID, I think the shift was always going to um, short news, fast news, short news, fast news, right? A lot of people thrived on that as well. But when I came back to Malaysia after a year in Cambodia. I started in Cambodia doing a weekly paper. So it goes out every Friday, and we were doing long form writing. But at the same time, I was also been able to contribute shorter news that goes out the very next day, right? Compared to Malaysia, where the moment you cover news, you actually have to post it on the same day or within 10 minutes or so, the fast news. I wouldn't say the fast news culture is bad or good. I'm not a big fan of it, because fast news is you have to take out a lot of information and keep whatever you can into a very compact write up, right? And that has actually influenced the way we read, the way we consume information, in a way where everyone is looking for shorter news. But that is why I love the edge, right? I think with COVID and having to manage a magazine during COVID has taught me that not everything has to be a short news. I didn't want to follow that trend of short news, but I really enjoyed writing long form news, the 1,000 words, 2,000 word pieces. And there were growing number of readers who read what we did at that time as well. I think for us is, yes, I'm very happy to see media players focus on short news, because we need that short news. But at the same time, I think there has to be more people to focus on long form news as well, and not just reporters from the Age, or like from what BT was when I was doing it as well. It really helps us, helps us to provide a more complete narrative as well. I think besides that, people often say print is dead, right? But I managed to run BT, in print every month during COVID. People were, there were corporations who wanted to work with us to put stories out there as well. I think print is not exactly dead, but it's time we start shifting and the way we write and what we write as well. Of course, we can't avoid the news because everyone has to sort of write the same news, but we're always trying to find a different angle. But I think Malaysians do want different types of content, not just short news. I think that's something that I believe that trend is coming up. The Malaysian Reserve came back in print a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of print is dead is that it goes up and down, right?
Yeah, I agree with you because I
Yeah.
think people think print is totally dead. They have to focus on online. But I think print is picking up back now, like what you said, the Malaysian Reserve pick up back on printing. Yes, I truly agree.
Yeah, I just met I went for a media event yesterday as well, and of course Tatler was there, and I was talking to my peers in Tatler as well, and print is still there. I mean they are still working, they are doing so many events, they are still printing a lot of magazines, thick ones, they're not just thin ones, it's not like a 20-30 page, it's really thick. And I think if you go to Kinokuniya this month, you'll have I recently bought a pack of the monthly magazine, and then Gen T, which is all startup young people featured in it. I mean, clearly there has to be a market for you to print a set of entrepreneurs in the Gen T issue, and then attach it with your magazine. So I think print is not dead, but it's up to us on how we want to take a very different approach. So I'm hoping, the Sun must still have a reason to print every day, right?
Yes, exactly.
That means that there must be something to really fund these guys to actually say, okay, you know what, we do have a lot of readers who print. I think it's just the Chinese media is still printing, and they are long form, right? I think uh, I have one leg in healthcare as well. So the Chinese media, I work with them as well, and I think people do want to read a lot of healthcare long form stories, articles, right, about health. So I think those things, that the more you cultivate the type of readership you want, I think they actually will come to you and say, look, it's very interesting. I think I still want to read print, right? It's about finding the right partners, finding the right stories, the right way of approach. I think design matters. Design is something we don't really look into in Malaysia. When you check out foreign media like Monocle magazine, there's a lot of emphasis on the way design tells the stories, which is something I think we definitely need to look. But yeah, I think print. I'm hoping print will come back stronger. I'm a big fan of print as well. I'm not ignoring online, but I think we have two different types of stories to tell. We can say two different ways in two different platforms.
Yes, great. Anyways, I think we have came to the end. Anyways, thank you so much, Raj, for your time today. It was truly an insightful chat, great sharing, and tons of beneficial tips from you to our listeners. And that was Poovenraj Kanagaraj, the founder and editor of Disruptr on Behind the Byline podcast. Look out for more episodes on the PR Newswire APAC social media channels on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more on that. Anyways, we have come to an end. Thank you so much, Raj, for your time today. It was a truly insightful chat, amazing sharing, and tons of beneficial tips from you to our listeners. And that was Poovenraj Kanagaraj, the founder and editor of Disruptr on Behind the Byline podcast. Look out for more episodes on the PR Newswire APAC social media channels on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll see you next time.